"What do you mean the guest waited 40 minutes for a clean towel?" Preston Alvarez asked, staring at the weekly report in front of him. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the AC. He sat alone in his office on the 13th floor of the corporate building, scanning the performance summaries from all 17 of his boutique hotels. Most were in decent shape, but the one in Chandler, Arizona, kept popping up with small but steady complaints. Long waits, missing amenities, burnt-out staff. Preston leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. He'd bought the chain 6 years ago when it was on the verge of collapse. After millions invested and a full rebrand, it had turned around. But lately, he was starting to feel like the bigger the company got, the less he could see what was really happening. He picked up the phone and buzzed his assistant. "I want to go to Chandler, quietly. Set it up. I'll work a shift or two. Laundry, housekeeping, whatever they need." The hotel had gone through 3 managers in 2 years. The current one, a guy named Marcus, had been there 8 months. Preston had never met him in person. In fact, he'd never met most of the staff at that location. It was part of the reason he could pull this off. 3 days later, wearing dusty jeans, worn sneakers, and a fake mustache, Preston walked through the employee entrance of the Chandler Hotel. His hair was dyed a lighter brown, and the name on his badge read Eric. "No offense," the front desk clerk, a guy named Darren, said as he handed him a keycard for the employee locker room, "but you don't look like you've ever worked laundry before." Preston gave a small laugh. "I learn fast." Downstairs in the service hallway, the air was thick with steam. The laundry room was tucked in the back, past food services and maintenance. Inside, 2 large industrial dryers were rumbling, and a mountain of towels sat half folded on a metal table. A woman in a navy blue uniform was moving quickly between machines. She looked maybe mid-30s, her dark curls tied in a bun, sweat sticking to her forehead. Her name tag read Vanessa. "You the new guy?" she asked without looking up. "Yeah, Eric," Preston said. "Grab those sheets and start folding. Don't mix the queen with the king sizes." He jumped in, clumsy at first, but Vanessa didn't slow down. She didn't explain much either, just worked like someone who didn't have time to talk. Preston liked that. She wasn't rude, just focused. After 20 minutes, she blew out a breath and leaned against the table. "How long you been here?" Preston asked, folding a pillowcase. 4 years, she said. Felt like 10. He watched her wipe sweat from her neck with her sleeve. "You always this busy?" Vanessa gave a flat look. "Always short-staffed. 2 people quit last month. Marcus hasn't filled the spots." Preston frowned. "So it's just you, me and Diego. He's on break. We work doubles a lot. Marcus says payroll's tight." Preston's hands stopped moving. "Wait, doubles? You mean overtime?" "Yeah," she said, her voice flat. "Unpaid mostly. We clock out at 8, but we stay till the job's done." He stared at her. "You don't get paid for the extra hours." She gave him a look like he was either new or stupid. "You think all this gets done by 6 people? The top floor alone takes 3 hours. Preston looked around. The room was hot, the machines loud, and the bins never stopped coming in. "Why do you stay?" he asked quietly. Vanessa shrugged. "I need the benefits. My son has asthma. I leave, I lose insurance." She looked at the clock. "Lunch break's over. Let's go." They worked the rest of the day like machines. Preston asked questions here and there, but mostly he watched how Vanessa moved like she was on autopilot. How Diego, a quiet guy in his 20s, came back from break and barely spoke. How neither of them complained, even when their shift officially ended at 5, but they stayed till nearly 7. When Preston finally left that night, he sat in his rental car staring at the steering wheel. He felt sick. He hadn't known, or maybe he hadn't wanted to know, but now he did. And this wasn't just a broken system. This was neglect, and it was his company. Tomorrow he was coming back, and he wasn't just folding sheets. Preston showed up the next morning at 6:45 sharp. Vanessa was already there, tying an apron around her waist, eyes heavy. She nodded at him once, didn't say much. No one else had arrived yet. The hum of the dryers hadn't even started. "Where's Diego?" Preston asked, tugging on a pair of gloves, called out. "Migraine," she said. "Second one this month." "He's been getting them worse." Preston nodded once and grabbed the first cart of towels. The pile was higher than yesterday's. By 7:30, the service elevator had dropped off 2 more bins sheets from the upper floors and dining linens from banquet services. Vanessa didn't complain. She worked faster. By 10, the room was sweltering. Preston's back ached. He kept pace mostly, but his hands were raw from folding and stacking. Vanessa's shirt was soaked through at the collar. "Hey," he said, pushing a cart toward the clean shelf. "How often do we get help from housekeeping?" She didn't look up. "We don't. No crossover, not since last manager left. They used to rotate a runner down here during peak. Marcus cut that." Preston paused, then leaned on the cart. "How often do you talk to Marcus?" Vanessa stopped folding. "He hasn't been down here in weeks." "Really?" He emails. "Maybe I don't check." Preston backed off. She wasn't angry, just used to being ignored. That was worse. Around 11, a petite woman in a maintenance uniform came through the far doorway, carrying 2 empty trays. She looked confused for a second, then spotted Vanessa. "Hey, you seen the dirty tablecloths from Banquet B? They were supposed to be picked up last night." Vanessa pointed to a bin near the wall. "That's them. They're soaked in wine and gravy. I haven't had time to start." The woman looked at Preston. "New guy, Eric," he said. She nodded. "Good luck." She left quickly. No chit-chat. Another sign of a staff that didn't waste energy on anything unnecessary. By noon, Preston's shirt was sticking to his back. He followed Vanessa down a hallway to the break room. A small fridge buzzed in the corner. The microwave's digital display was frozen at 0. There were 3 chairs, one cracked down the side. Vanessa pulled a protein bar from her bag and sat without a word. Preston poured water from a thermos he'd brought. He waited until her breathing slowed. "You live nearby?" he asked. 15 minutes. "Bus ride? Kid in school?" She looked at him, eyes narrowing slightly. "Yeah, 5th grade. Why?" "No reason, just making conversation." She peeled back the wrapper and took a bite, chewing slowly. "What did you do before this?" she asked. "Retail. Warehouse. Temp stuff. You like hotel work?" He hesitated. "I thought I would." She gave a short laugh. "Give it a week." The door creaked open. A tall man in a wrinkled polo walked in, holding a tablet. Mid-40s, thinning hair, strong cologne. He didn't acknowledge either of them. Just walked to the fridge, pulled out a soda, turned, and finally noticed Preston. "You knew?" "Yeah, Eric." "Marcus," he said coolly, glancing at Vanessa. "You didn't tell me we were onboarding today." Vanessa didn't look up. "I didn't know until he showed up yesterday." Marcus frowned. "That's not protocol." Preston stood. "I was told to report to housekeeping, and they sent me here." He studied Preston for a beat, then nodded once. "Fine, you part-time, just trying it out." "Don't be late," Marcus said flatly. "We're running lean." He walked out without waiting for a response. Vanessa didn't speak until the door clicked shut. "He's always like that. He doesn't check in. He checks numbers, not people." They returned to the laundry room. That afternoon, Preston asked to help with deliveries. Vanessa handed him the cart and pointed toward the service elevator. He navigated long hallways, dropping fresh towels outside room clusters. On the 5th floor, a housekeeper named Carla was pushing a supply trolley. "You the new laundry guy?" she asked, wiping her forehead. "Yeah." "Eric, they finally hired help, huh? About time. You short too?" Carla barked a laugh. "You kidding? We're supposed to clean 20 rooms a day. I had 27 yesterday." He blinked. "That's not possible. I skip drawers, no time." "Management says if we clock out late again, we'll get written up." Preston stared at her. "That's illegal," Carla shrugged. "They don't care. Marcus says if we don't like it, we can leave, so people leave." Back in the laundry room, Preston told Vanessa about the conversation. She didn't react. "Yeah," she said, "same story everywhere. People don't last." He sat on the edge of the sorting table. "Why doesn't anyone report it?" She looked at him. "To who?" "HR's in Phoenix. They call once a quarter." "Last time I told them we were understaffed, Marcus gave me the silent treatment for a week." "You ever think about quitting?" "Every day." "So why stay?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for another bin and started sorting. "Because I'm tired of starting over." That night, Preston left through the front entrance. He passed by the front desk where the night clerk was arguing with a guest over a reservation that had been canceled without notice. The clerk looked overwhelmed, sweating under the fluorescent lights. Preston walked past, turned down the corridor, and stepped outside into the dry evening air. He stood in the parking lot, eyes scanning the building. He felt something shift in his chest, not just guilt. Responsibility. This wasn't mismanagement. This was exploitation. Not dramatic or loud, but steady, quiet, and corrosive. And he had built the system that allowed it. Tomorrow, he wouldn't be wearing gloves. He'd be asking questions and people would be answering them. Preston stood just inside the laundry room the next morning, no disguise, no badge, and no more pretending. He wore a navy dress shirt, sleeves rolled up, and a plain black watch. His presence in the hallway drew silence. Two housekeepers passing by glanced at him, puzzled, but kept walking. Vanessa came through the service door balancing a crate of folded pillowcases. Her eyes met his. She stopped mid-step. He nodded once. "Morning, Vanessa," she stared, confused. "You're not in uniform." "I'm not Eric," he said. "I'm Preston Alvarez. I own this company." Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. The crate in her hands shifted, and she set it down slowly. "You're serious." "I am." Vanessa leaned against the table, arms crossed. "Why?" "I needed to see it myself." She didn't speak right away. Her gaze didn't waver. And he glanced at the piles behind her. "I saw enough." The door opened behind them. Marcus walked in, scrolling through his tablet. "Vanessa, the third-floor banquet linen still haven't." He froze, his eyes locked on Preston, the blood drained from his face. "Mr. Alvarez." "I wasn't told you were visiting." Preston stepped forward. "That's the point." Marcus straightened his shirt, fumbling for composure. "Had I known, I would have arranged. I've spent the last 2 days in your laundry room, working double shifts, unpaid, with no help." "You didn't arrange anything because you haven't set foot down here in weeks." Marcus glanced at Vanessa, then back at Preston. "There must be a misunderstanding." "There isn't," Preston said flatly. "You've been cutting hours, denying overtime, and pushing people past safe limits. I've seen it. I've lived it. You've created a system where silence is survival." Marcus's jaw tensed. "With respect, sir, our margins have been tight. I've done what's necessary to keep us operational. By running people into the ground, it's not that simple. We've been understaffed for months. Hiring's been slow. The labor pool, you've had 17 applicants for laundry and housekeeping in the last 3 weeks, Preston interrupted. I checked. You didn't call back a single one." Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. "You hired no one," Preston continued. "Because keeping payroll low made your numbers look clean, and you knew no one in Phoenix would look deeper." "I prioritized efficiency," Marcus said stiffly. "No, you prioritized appearances, and in doing so, you ignored your people." Marcus looked toward the door. "Perhaps we should step into the office." "No," Preston said. "You're done here, collect your things." Vanessa blinked. Marcus's eyes widened. "You're firing me." Preston didn't hesitate. "Effective immediately. Security will escort you out." Marcus's face flushed. "Mr. Alvarez, with respect, you treated people like they were disposable. That's not leadership. That's failure." Marcus turned toward Vanessa as if searching for sympathy. She didn't move. Preston nodded toward the hallway. "You can leave now." When Marcus was gone, Vanessa let out a breath she didn't seem to realize she'd been holding. She looked at Preston carefully, her voice low. "What happens now? I want to meet with every department lead who's still willing to talk to me. Today, not in a boardroom." "In the break room, no agendas, just honesty." She gave a slow nod. "Okay." Within 2 hours, Preston had gathered 6 people in the back room: Vanessa, Carla from housekeeping, Darren from the front desk, a maintenance tech named Lewis, a kitchen runner named Ellie, and a woman from reservations named Jasmine, who had almost quit the week before. They took seats around the old table, some sipping coffee, others sitting with arms crossed, unsure. Preston stood at the edge of the room. "I came here thinking the numbers didn't add up. I found something worse. I found a team holding this place together without support, without recognition, and without enough sleep." Jasmine raised a hand slightly. "Can I say something, please? I've worked front of house in hotels for 12 years, never seen anything like this. Guests complain, we try to fix it, but the systems are broken. Phones go unanswered because we're juggling check-ins, walk-ins, and complaints. The night shift has one person. They're scared to leave the desk to use the restroom." Preston listened, jaw set. Lewis leaned forward. "We've been duct taping air conditioning units because the parts we need get delayed for weeks. We had a leak in the second floor ceiling for 3 months. Marcus told us to patch it and stop whining. Carla gave a bitter laugh. He told me the same thing when I said I needed more gloves. I had blisters on both hands. Ellie spoke next. The kitchen's been running with 2 people on weekends. I'm carrying trays and washing dishes. The chef quit last month. No one replaced her. Preston nodded slowly. I heard enough in 2 days to know this isn't a one-off. This is systemic. Vanessa looked up. So what are you going to do? Preston took a breath. First, I've brought in an interim manager from our Flagstaff location, Marisol Vega. She knows operations and she respects people. She'll be here by tonight. Carla raised an eyebrow. She any good? She rebuilt our Santa Fe property from a 1-star to a 4-star in under 18 months. She doesn't tolerate excuses. Lewis let out a low whistle. Second, Preston continued, everyone who's worked unpaid overtime in the last 6 months will be compensated in full. I've already pulled the time cards. Jasmine's eyes widened. Seriously? I'm serious. And third, he said, pausing for a beat, we're hiring. Immediately. I've authorized staffing to increase by 30%. We're posting jobs today. Vanessa, she looked up. I'd like you to step into a temporary lead role in laundry services, with full authority to train, schedule, and request support. If you're willing. She stared at him. You're offering me a promotion. I'm asking if you'll help fix what we broke. She nodded once. Yeah. I will. Darren raised his hand. What about HR? We've had complaints ignored. Preston's expression tightened. That changes now. I've reassigned oversight to our Denver office. I'm also setting up an anonymous reporting system that goes directly to my executive assistant. No middlemen. Ellie leaned forward. You really didn't know all this was happening. No, Preston said, and that's not an excuse, that's a failure. Mine. Quiet settled over the room. Then Jasmine said, I didn't think people at the top ever came down here. I didn't either, Preston admitted, but I will now, regularly, no more filters. As the group broke up, people lingered longer than usual. They didn't rush to the time clock, they asked questions, talked. Laughed briefly. Later that evening, Preston stood near the service entrance as Marisol arrived. She had a clipboard in one hand and a quiet confidence that filled the hallway. They shook hands. Rough shape, she asked. He nodded. Worse than I expected. She looked down the corridor. Then we rebuild, simple as that. As she walked toward the manager's office, Vanessa passed her in the hallway. They exchanged a brief nod. Preston watched them both. For the first time in months, he felt something shift, not the numbers, the people. By the end of the week, the rhythm inside the Chandler hotel had shifted but not smoothed. Hiring was underway, but new employees required background checks, onboarding, and training. Vanessa had stepped into her temporary lead role in laundry, but the same 2-person team was still covering the bulk of the workload. She stayed late again, not because she had to. Preston had made it clear no one was to work past their paid time, but because she wasn't going to let clean linens run short for guests. Not under her watch. Preston, now in regular clothes and without a disguise, was still on site. He didn't hover. He observed. He spoke to staff in corners of the hotel he'd never stepped foot in before. And he listened, really listened. On Friday morning, he met Marisol outside the break room. She had dark circles under her eyes and a clipboard packed with notes. Your thoughts? He asked. She didn't hesitate. The structural issues are fixable. Staffing, scheduling, proper supply management. I've already drafted a new rotation system, but there's more damage than just logistics. He waited. They don't trust us, she said. Not yet. They're polite because they're professional. But they're waiting to be disappointed. He nodded slowly. We earned that. Marisol flipped a page. I want to reroute the leadership reporting chain. Frontline staff need to be heard without fear. That starts with identifying people who can act as department liaisons, not just managers. People they already trust. Vanessa, absolutely, and Darren, Jasmine from reservations. Ellie might be a good fit for back of house, but she's hesitant. Preston looked through the small window into the break room. Carla was sitting alone, quietly eating soup from a thermos. Carla, he asked. Marisol shook her head. Not yet. She's competent, but she's still angry, not ready to lead. He didn't argue. Anger took time to unlearn. Later that day, Preston walked into maintenance. The main room smelled of oil and metal polish. Lewis was crouched next to an exposed wall panel, rewiring a thermostat. You had a minute, Preston asked. Lewis looked up. Yeah, what's up? I saw the report you filed last night about the low water pressure on the second floor. Lewis stood and wiped his hands on a rag. It's been dropping every week, probably a clog in the main line. Think it's a safety issue? Not yet, not if we handle it soon. Preston nodded. You'll have what you need. I've authorized Marisol to bypass the old approval chain for critical repairs. Lewis raised an eyebrow. That's going to upset procurement. Preston met his gaze. Good. Lewis grinned faintly and returned to the panel. At 3, Preston joined a scheduled staff huddle in the banquet hall. About 30 employees showed up more than expected. Some stood near the door, arms crossed or leaning against carts. Others sat in the plastic chairs that had been hastily set up. No suits, no presentation slides, just Preston in rolled sleeves holding a notebook. I'm not here to give a speech, he began. I'm here to answer questions. A pause. Then Ellie raised her hand. You fixing this place for us or for your reputation? A few heads turned. Preston didn't flinch, for both, he said. Because one's tied to the other, but I started with you. A man near the back spoke next. What happens when you leave? When the cameras, if there were any, stop rolling. There were no cameras, Preston said. But when I leave, the changes don't. I've appointed Marisol as permanent manager. You'll have monthly town halls. HR oversight has already been reassigned, and I'll be visiting unannounced. Regularly? A woman from food services crossed her arms. That sounds good now, but we've heard good-sounding things before. Vanessa stood then. She hadn't planned to speak, but her voice was clear. I've worked here 4 years. I never thought someone from corporate would see us. Not really. But he did, and he's still here. We're short-staffed, yeah, it's hard, but for the first time I believe we're being heard. Silence followed. Not disbelief, not applause, just quiet consideration. Marisol stepped forward. We're posting new schedules this weekend. We're balancing workloads, limiting room count per housekeeper, and assigning floaters for backup. The lift won't be instant, but it's starting. She looked around the room. And if anyone's told they have to work off the clock again, I want to know, immediately. No exceptions. After the meeting, Preston lingered in the hallway. Jasmine walked past him with a folder in her hand, then stopped and turned. I almost left, you know. Last month, I had my resignation typed up. You're still here, he said. I didn't have another job lined up. Didn't want to risk it, but now, she hesitated. Now I'm glad I didn't, he nodded once. I'm glad too. On Saturday morning, Preston returned to the laundry room. Not to work, Vanessa wouldn't let him fold a thing now, but to check in. How's it going? He asked. She didn't sugarcoat. Rough. We're still covering too much. But the new hire starts Monday, and Diego's back Tuesday. We'll manage. He glanced at the industrial dryers. One was down. That one's being replaced next month, Vanessa said before he could ask. Marisol approved it. He smiled faintly. You're quick. I don't wait around, she said. Then, softer, not anymore. As Preston turned to leave, she called after him. Hey, he stopped. You came here looking for problems. You found them. Most people in your position would have issued a memo and flown out. I almost did, he admitted. But you didn't. No, he said, because I saw what mattered and it wasn't the numbers. She nodded once and went back to work. That afternoon, Preston sat in the vacant manager's office and wrote a message to every hotel in the chain. No fluff, just a directive. Every location would receive an audit of labor practices. Anonymous reporting systems would be installed across all properties. And each regional director would spend 1 full week per quarter working frontline positions: laundry, housekeeping, kitchen, or maintenance. Not observing, working. He ended the message with one line. No part of this company should be invisible. Before he logged off, he added a note to his calendar: 3 months from now, return to Chandler. No warning, no fanfare. When he stepped outside into the late afternoon sun, the air was dry, but the weight on his chest had lifted. The building behind him was still under strain, still short-handed, still climbing, but now it was climbing with purpose. And this time, no one was being left at the bottom.